African countries. My name is Aderito Aramush, Director General of Mozambique Meteorological Service and Vice President of Regional Association 1. Well, we had two different questions. One was how the joint strategy plan could contribute to address existing gaps in implementing the multi-hazard early warning system in Africa. And the second one was it disappears here. Well, by starting with this, it's important to mention that we have come up with a census that a well-structured joint strategy can really bridge these institutional, technical, and social gaps in MOR's implementation by promoting synergy, inclusivity, and resilience at all levels. However, we need to improve things like coordination. We must have a targeted intervention and get resource optimization. No matter how beautiful is the plan, if there's no funds to implement those activities, we will end up by 2030 without operationalizing what we have agreed here in this strategic planning. So, by doing so, of course, this joint plan, it plays a critical role in addressing gaps for implementation in Africa. For instance, by providing a unified framework for aligning policy, all starts with a policy. If the countries here, their policies are not integrated in the vision of RIMI, so we will not have really a joint strategic action plan. Outlines the coordinated training programs, which is more important. We have a willing to provide the service for different stakeholders. However, how to produce this information that different stakeholders need. This starts with knowledge and the infrastructure, how to do and how to use those infrastructures to produce this kind of information. We need to guide the investment in infrastructure. Countries, we are in different stages of activities of development in terms of the status of National Meteorological and Hydrological Service. So we need to come together. That's why we have different gaps and solutions here, depends on the countries. Data sets are not, let's say, domesticated, and this, in order to come with this, of course, the knowledge must be there, like impact-based forecasts. Nowadays, we are changing, we are moving from to say how the weather will be tomorrow and say what the weather will cause tomorrow. This comes also from the experience that the countries has got during the disaster management. Most of the countries, their lack of human capacity in National Meteorological and Hydrological Service. Sometimes we have those technicians being trained by efforts of National Meteorological Service, but after that, after come back, they run for other institutions that they pay well. So in this regard, has a solution by activating the training centers related to meteorological service and in connection with the university. It should be a way out to come up with an implementation of this joint strategy with RIMES. Of course, at the national level, we need also to this understanding of the role of meteorological service. If there's no commitment at a high level, it means that The NMH will also be led at their own lag. So one of the activity with this should be this awareness on top level, so that the countries, the decision makers can see the Met Service has a solution to come up with L1, which is needed for the L action that guide us for resilience of the communities. I have mentioned about the translation of data to tailor service. What the data are there, what we need is know-how to do that. Apart of that, a collaboration, a co-production, and the generation with other sectors. We must not walk alone. We must not let no one behind. So that's why there's this joint cooperation strategy, so that together we can bring up the solutions for what we want. In nowadays, academians are being called to help us. The things are happening. The people, the communities, they can see what's happening, but now the answer, how to proceed, how to behave, this is like so. The academia, the universities in the research field, they are being called. We need to incorporate them so that this research can go with the development of those activities, because experts still rely on tools so that to develop African models which are more characteristic with local topography and the local characteristics, with this to bring up a more very high resolutions model that also needs a very high computer performance, and this requires also investment. Well, just for closing, I have mentioned about the research, but the research must not be only in the countries, it must be at the regional or regional level. Artificial intelligence is something that we have started talking about, and this is the future of our world, but it cannot go without the digital transition. And digital transition in the countries is something that is lagging behind for developing countries. We cannot have artificial intelligence running if in the country the digital transition is still not going on. Of course, as we know, the early warning system has got the 4 pillars, and one of them, the first one, which is risk knowledge. When we talk about risk knowledge, we need to take also the vulnerability and the risk assessment. This is something that is being done by providing this capacity to the countries, so that they can really be informed about what's going on. If there's let's say, creating risk maps for sort out the problems of this vulnerability. We can by then create a center of excellence. Excellence in the region. If in the program, in the joint plan, it's not possible to help each country by having its own tools, at least we can come up, we can create, we can establish, or we can revive the regional centers that are already there by increasing or improving the infrastructures that are there, so that the countries can use those tools in order to run their own models and come up with their own and the local information that will be disseminated to the decision maker. Improving of infrastructure and capacity building. As I said in the beginning, most of the NMHs are in different stages. We have thinking about encouraging the South-South collaboration and improving also, as we said, high-resolution models in Africa. Sometimes we rely on the models that are being run outside in the global centers, for instance, but the resolution for that, sometimes 14 kilometers, 12 kilometers, we needed to come bring it for high resolution. Why not 1 kilometer or less than 1 kilometer? But of course, we recognize that this implies the investment in HPC, high performance computing, which has, as I said, by having regional centers very well established with those tools, we could really take it on for benefit of this joint strategy for action plan, which we wanted to implement from 2025 by 2030. This is in a nutshell what we have came up with. Of course, we are preparing all those recommendations in very well organized document. Thank you for your attention, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much for this overview. And now I request the group 3 to summarize the outcome of their discussions.
Thank you, Chair, for the floor. My name is Temeli Baker from the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, or ESCAP for short. We had the pleasure to help moderate and facilitate the third group, which was on policy incentives and the economic rationale for investing in RIME's regional early warning system. So this was a very interesting discussion, a little bit different to the other two upstairs. Along with Met Services who stayed with us in the room, we had 10 countries represented from Ministries of Home Affairs, Ministries of Transport, Ministries of National Development Planning. So it was a very rich and interesting discussion, but we recognised we were about to tackle very hard questions. So I will do my best to try and summarise the 10 different perspectives that were in the room for a very difficult conversation of something that is yet to be unlocked and understood. But really we were trying to understand more about the challenges of shifting from essential early warning systems to effective early warning systems, and the solutions at the regional level to unlock the triple dividend of resilience that we can see when early warning systems are truly effective. So the challenges, the solutions, but also the resourcing, the finances that we could probably tap into to support this transition, as well as the policy environment to help enable this transition. So this is what we were trying to cover, recognising that the losses from disaster events, mostly the indirect outweighs often the direct damages and losses from these events. So how do we support the shift from essential early warning systems to effective early warning systems to really promote long-term sustainable development and economic growth in our countries, as well as saving lives? So the discussion was looking at, like I said, challenges, solutions, funding and policy arrangements. But what we spoke about was, I will say, threefold. One is on really how to access the resources for this shift. We recognised that there was some funding available, things like the GCF, the Loss and Damage Fund, lots of different funding also in-house that's available, but the problem is the how to access these, and sometimes there are the resource constraints in terms of simply drafting the proposals and recognising the support of RIMES to support countries to unlock some of these funds. But also the need to just simply review national policies on early warning systems to understand what are the roles of different line ministries and how we can pull everyone together. Which brings to the next main point that really came out was around the who. Who do we need to buy in, and who do we need to bring along to commit with us on building these effective early warning systems. And the who was, we really need to bring in the private sector to realise a lot of the economic gains that can be had when we really do have effective early warning systems. We also need to recognise the critical role of community. where the early action really lies on community members is when you can really reap the co-benefits of early warning systems. We need to bring in institutions to play a role, and we need to make sure that sectors are also included and have this commitment in effective early warning systems. Also recognise that there was a mention of also bringing in finance institution and banks. How can we ensure that there is a full investment plan between all different stakeholders involved in effective early warning systems? And then the third big point that we came across was really on the what. What are we needing to do? And the what and the solutions was really coming around things like technology and the tools that are being created, and that can be really amplified through new tech like AI, and recognising as well that RDAS is a great platform that presents this readily available operational system that really is embodying this through RHYMES. The other what was really communication. Communication not only from science to these tools, but from these tools to policymakers in a way that they can understand what the early warning system is saying and what early actions and preparedness measures can really ensure that we do reap the benefits across the whole triple dividend of resilience. We also recognise that data is still really, really important in this discussion. The data gap and integrating a lot of data platforms and sources is really important, and also harked back to the previous conversations that brought in the sector. Data is really a key role in shifting from essential to effective early warning systems, and also noting that it's important that we learn together. So a lot of capacity building was continued, but this capacity building from a multidisciplinary, multi-stakeholder perspective, that we can learn together on what the early warning system does, what services can be provided, but also how can we use this, and how can we use this to really reap all of those benefits across the triple dividend. And here we also noted that we should see the policies that are made to ensure that early warning systems are understood by all and that early actions can be tackled. So thinking about these three main how, who and what from the conversations, the countries, then we can look back and what the RHYMES offer is. And it was nice to see that the conversation really validated a lot of the approaches of RHYMES. So I'll just echo some of the services that were appreciated, but also note some of those that are continuing to expand. So we note that RHYMES is building more on looking at market assessments for sectors and private sector to really understand the business case for investing in early warning system, but also the benefits that can be drawn out when we work together with early warning service providers. So that was a good step in that direction that's coming. Also looking at cost benefit analysis, especially at the local level, and then communicating those benefits to policymakers is something that is a big need within the RHYMES member countries, and also the appetite is there within the planning ministries as well. We also note that there's RHYMES expertise I'm trying to read my own handwriting, to support national governments to access the funds. We already spoke about some countries being supported by RHYMES to access GCF funding. So that was one big service from RHYMES that has been appreciated, that we do see as a great solution at the regional level to support countries in similar situations. And similar to that, we recognise that the RHYMES support to facilitate and foster South-South cooperation, sub-regional groupings, sharing like to like has been really, really wonderful in this intergovernmental mechanism, and something that should continue on. There was a conversation about solutions such as the Monsoon Forum, which started in one country and really has scaled around the world. So looking at how tools have been created and piloted within the RHYMES ecosystem and really spread between countries that are going through similar situations and sharing those learnings. So that was another great big plus for RHYMES to continue on. Like I said, we also validated the RDAS tool as a great data integration tool to communicate some of the hazards in the early warning system potential for benefits. But then maybe just to close and sum up, I would just echo one of the countries said that we can't invest in something that we're not aware of. So everyone really did continue to talk about communication, and I think within this room we communicate a lot, scientist to scientist, understanding the hazard, understanding the risk. But now we're looking at communication and that next step. How do you really communicate from this platform to your policymakers? And like I've said, there's a lot of tools that are at our fingertips, things like cost-benefit analysis, things like these discussions, things like sustainable development goal progress reports are really important avenues for this. So I just wanted to highlight that communication is probably one of the main things that we can work together on, at least between SCAP and RIMES. I'll take the liberty to say that, and limit the element of surprise that our weather has. If we can be proactive and intentional in understanding our weather with our partners and with the users, then it does have the benefits that we can reap that are largely untapped across the board. So I will leave it there, and maybe in case I've missed anything, anyone else in the group can probably raise their hand, or Dr. Sanjay, who was helping to moderate the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this summary. I think now all the three groups have summarized their outcome. I think it will be important to make a note of all the recommendations so that Secretariat will assemble all the important outcome, so that it will be useful for later. So with this, we end this morning session. I think we will go for lunch now, and maybe we will come back at 2 o'clock, maybe a quick lunch by 2